Buddy, thanks for joining this a little different webinar that we've done in the past. This is the Walking with Grizzly Bears trip, but it's actually one of my own personal account of being on the trip and how we were able to get close to grizzly bears and doing it safely. So I really enjoy doing these webinars. I mean, I get to talk about the things that I love to do, and that's wildlife. So that's me on the screen there, Thomas Leonard. I've been with Arctic Kingdom for a good 13, 14 years now, and I really feel passionate about this trip, and along with all the other trips that we do here at the Arctic Kingdom, as we get to really put a value on wildlife through tourism and photography, which, in my opinion, is really the future of conservation. So bears are one of my favorite animals, and I got to spend a good 4 days this past July on our Walking with Grizzly Bears trip, and I'm going to be sharing with you some of my favorite moments through pictures and video. And not all the pictures are going to be mine, but for the most part they will be. This is one of the ones I took when I was there. Other pictures were provided by some past guests that were on the trip that for moments that I couldn't quite convey, because as much as I'm going to be talking about a lot of the moments I had, there's other aspects to the trip that I'd like to talk about with some of the other images. So bears are quite incredible, and the moments I'm going to be providing are just, I'm just the middleman. I took a picture of something in the wild, and hopefully that those moments will come through. This was just another quick shot of a grizzly cub that was taken on the trip, feeding on an Arctic char. Before I get into all these different moments, it's about explaining how being close to a bear is actually quite safe. And bears, even though they can be seen as scary and they can be intimidated based on what the media is portrays bears to be, they're really quite peaceful. And this trip is all about an open-air classroom on bear behavior. So really seeing how they interact in the wild, and actually how they quite ignore us, and we respect their territory, they respect our territory. Now, the pictures I took on, a lot of pictures in this webinar are going to be taken, were taken with 2 cameras that I brought with me. And one is an iPhone, surprisingly, and the other one is just a small, simple DSLR, a Nikon D2000, with an 80 to 400 millimeter lens. So you don't need a very large zoom camera to come on here and really get to see the bears up close. They're walking past us in front of the cabins day after day, hour by hour, and a lot of times coming within 10 feet. And so when there is an iPhone picture, I'll let you know. But the time that we get over the 4 days is give us a lot of time to observe them, learn their behavior, and actually get to really know the personalities of the bears. I mean, each one has a very different personality, just like every dog has a different personality. Some are more curious, some are more wary, some are more are good hunters, some are not good hunters, some are good fishers, some are not good fishers. And during that time, we see the same bears coming by more than once, because they're kind of going up and down the river, and I'll explain why a little bit later. But because of that, we've actually given them names. So you might hear names like Sunshine or Sophie or Harold or Patch, because they all have a certain unique characteristic about them, which is great, because you really, oh, when a bear was coming by, someone was like, oh, so Sunshine's coming back. So then we just watch that bear be coming up the river. Some of the bears we got to have been coming by this place for over 20 years, and so our lead guide, Phil, has gotten to know some of the bears from they were cubs, and now they're adults, and this is and now those ones are having cubs, and so really having that guide who's able to explain the behavior of how what the bear was like when they were younger and compared to now, it's a very unique information to have that isn't available on any other type of trip. Now, Phil, our guide, and has been working as a fisheries officer for over 20 years in this area, and that's how he became familiar with the bears and learning how to coexist with them peacefully. So from the behaviors that we get from fishing, from simply walking up, from eating fish, that predominantly is what the bears, all they care about is they're caring about eating, they're caring about surviving, and they don't care about us. They don't see us as food. We hear about grizzly attacks in the news. Well, it's just like we hear about great white shark attacks in the news, and these are the anomalies. Bears are actually quite peaceful, and so if the attacks that we hear in the media are those few and far between where someone's probably in the wrong place at the wrong time. Perhaps it was a sick bear, maybe it was an injured bear and was desperate. But when you learn to really see that bears are very gentle creatures and you really can coexist with them. Just like this picture here shows where the bear is eating a fish, and we're just off to the side in our territory watching the bear. I'll explain what that means in a second, what their territory and what our territory means. So this one here is, again, just showing a bear that's resting and we're just observing. So before I get into it, this is a July to August trip in the north part of British Columbia. And we fly from, or I guess the gateway is actually Whitehorse, Yukon. And then just to orient yourself, I'm going to talk about where exactly and why exactly the grizzly bear cabins are placed where they are. So first of all, Whitehorse is very accessible, easy to get to. It's a 2.5-hour flight from Vancouver, and then from there we take a short hour-and-a-half shuttle ride to Atlin in the middle there, and then over to the grizzly bear cabins by helicopter. So the 7-day itinerary that I was actually on a shorter one, but for those of you that would be coming on this trip, it would be a 7-day itinerary where you'd arrive in Whitehorse. We do a one-night stay in Whitehorse, as it is the gateway to the kind of gold rush era of, and it has a lot of history there. From there, the next morning, we'll take a van, about an hour-and-a-half ride to Atlin, British Columbia, and we'll cross to the border between the Yukon and British Columbia. And surprisingly, the road goes from tarmac and then right at the border, which there aren't any guards or anything, but it goes from tarmac to gravel. So the last half hour we're actually on a gravel road heading to Atlin, BC. So we're getting into a very remote region. And then from there we had a 30-minute helicopter ride to get to the grizzly bear cabins. We spent our next 4 days grizzly bear viewing, and then back again to Whitehorse at the end. So again, Whitehorse is the capital of Yukon. Has a population of 28,000, and it's an easy 2-hour, 20-minute flight from Vancouver. We'll spend a day in the Yukon exploring the gold rush history and the old steamers that were in the area before heading off onto the grizzly bear trip. Atlin, BC is much smaller. It's only a town of 500. It is it's located at the northwest corner of British Columbia on Atlin Lake, and a couple of unique features of Atlin Lake is it contains the Birch Mountain, which is, for those of you that like your facts, is the tallest mountain in fresh water. And then off in the distance, you'll see the Lulan Glacier, which is the largest ice field on the continent. And with the helicopter ride to get to the Taku River Conservancy, where the bear cabins are, we'll actually be flying close to the glaciers and to the ice fields. Now, the bear cabins are situated in the Taku River Conservancy, which is a 4.5 million acres in size. It has the highest density of grizzly bears in BC. It's also the largest area of uninhabited and roadless acreage, which means it's the largest intact wilderness river system on the west coast. Now, what does this all mean? It just means that there's very little human touch. The wildlife is untouched, and it's just pure wildlife at its finest. Now, just to give you an idea of where this is, if you can see in the top right of your screen, there's a map of Canada and the United States, and that little red area is the Taku River Conservancy area. And in our screen here, with the red arrow, that is going to be where our cabins are. And that cabin is just on the Nakina River, just before the confluence of the Taku River. And then from Atlin, which is where this little helicopter is, we'll fly over muskeg and forest and mountains, and to get over the valley to get into the Taku River area. I had some fun with that graphic display. Now, what I've got here is got a little video that kind of gives you an indication of what that flight looked like. It's sped up quite quickly, and it may or may not stream via the web to your screen. It might be a little bit choppy, but it gives you an indication of the kind of forest that we get to, and then as we approach the camp, we'll kind of follow along the river, and then ultimately we land on a flat gravel bed right by the camp. Now, what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to use a few images to give us a better indication of what that was like. And here we are. So it is a 30-minute helicopter ride, which is absolutely spectacular because you're actually flying over completely pristine wilderness. And then as we get into the last 5 minutes, we're following along the Nakina River where the bears are. Now, what makes this so special, and actually what I'm going to show you here, is this is the view that we'll be seeing for the next 4 days while we're on the trip. And so what we have in the middle, first of all, is as we came in, we spotted a grizzly bear from the air. Now, it's a little hard to see in the picture, so I've circled it with a red circle. And then further on, where the little red arrow is where the cabins are. Now, this is a 2 or 3 kilometer stretch of pretty flat water. And now, what makes this so good for grizzly bears is the fact that because it is flat, it's an excellent and one of the most productive salmon spawning areas in the West Coast. It has about half the Chinook salmon that come here to spawn, and in some cases you have over 1 million of fish in a 1 kilometer section. And then there's been also accounts of pink salmon and chump salmon also in the area. At the peak, the pink salmon are roughly around 1,000 salmon per meter. That's how dense it is. And so the bears actually come here for miles around feasting on this buffet of fish. And the 2 kilometer stretch is so dense and compact because on either side, so we're sitting around 500 feet of altitude. The 500 feet that takes us from here down to the Pacific Ocean is a series of rapids that are obviously not conducive for the salmon to spawn, so they have to jump and make their way up those many miles of rapids to reach this area, which is a nice, flat, calm bed of gravel for the spawning of the salmon. And then as we get past it, again, the rapids start up again. So you can imagine just a long, flat area of water for the salmon to spawn. And this is where the grizzlies are all coming in July and August, or at the end of July to the 3rd week of August, to feed off the salmon after they spawn. They die, and so it's an easy pickings for the grizzlies to get. So I'm just going a little bit further, and I have to apologize for the little top left. It's a little blurry. This was taken out of a GoPro camera out of the side of the helicopter, and as we came down into the area, there was a few bugs that got onto the lens. So couldn't clean every single picture, but here's it still gives you a good indication of what we're looking at. So again, the red arrow is where the cabins are, and we're going to get to them in a second with a helicopter. But this view of the river is what we're seeing from the ground every day. At the bottom left of the screen, you'll see a little sandbar. A lot of bears are seen there. There's a little platform, and I'll see here with my arrow, that we can stay in. I'll talk about the little platforms. They're probably about 15 feet in the air. And platforms are actually where we leave you in your peace and quiet without a guide, at your choice, if you want to have just nature and bears to yourself. So there's two of those platforms. There's one here, and then there's one just a little bit halfway between the cabins, and then the cabins are down here. And this is where the bears are going up and down every day. They go up and they displace one another kind of as you move up the river, and you get mother with cubs, you get juveniles, you get subadults, you get male bears. You'll see bears in the little shallow rapids here jumping on fish. There's a lot of eagles that are flying through here. There's a lot of eagle nests because they're also fishing on the salmon. So grizzly bears and eagles are the two main reasons for coming in. And as I get into this, this is kind of the shot of the helicopter kind of coming down the river. And as we get into the cabin area, you can see that the cabins are actually placed in a very flat area beside the river. Probably about 100 years ago, this probably was still river, but as the river changes, it leaves the tailings. And then where the people are standing on the bottom right is actually where the helicopter would land. It leaves the engines running, and then we get off, and the next group gets on. And then lifts off again and takes off. So it's very little time with the helicopter actually staying in there. So this is a view from the camp, obviously from the helicopter looking down. We've tried to keep the camp as natural looking as possible, maintaining all the natural, trying to keep the natural vegetation there of all the berries and shrubs and trees that the bears like to rub on. There's a lot of tall cottonwoods and giant spruce that is in the area, and that grows very quickly. So the first thing that happens when we get to the camp is we'll have a quick little orientation, because the bears are okay to wander through this camp, and we're trying to coexist with them. They've been the camp is actually theirs to walk through, and then we go through a safety briefing in terms of how to move through the camp. And I'll show a little video of that in a second. But before I get into that, we spend most of our time on the deck of the dining area of the lounge kitchen, because it is closest to the river, and we'll be watching the bears come back and forth. The three main areas that we spent over the course of the week there were on this deck here, and we do retreat to the cabins, but we don't spend time walking through the camp. It's if we are walking from the sleep cabins to the main cabin or to the dining area, we will be, it's just a main get there and go and come back. We don't actually hang out in the middle of the area. And so we spend our time here on the deck watching the bears. Now, part of the safety briefing is all about giving the bear their space. So the river is theirs to have, and we do not walk past the deck. So bears are quite peaceful. They're very predictable, and they're very intelligent. And they're actually quite easy to get along with. And at first, people are maybe a little apprehensive about being in close proximity to the bears, but after a while, you really start to relax and see that they don't care about us whatsoever. Just trying to get to the next slide here. Bears have a lot to worry about, as I mentioned earlier. They're trying to eat. They're trying to put fat on for the winter. They know they don't want to get hurt. They need to survive. They know that we are not food, and that if they do come too close, okay, maybe get a little bit of a yell, and they don't come close again. So we just kind of sit back and relax, and we just fade away into the background. And the bears just go and do their thing, and we just watch them as they do their thing. And that thing could be walking up the river looking for fish. It could be sitting along the river watching fish go by. It could be getting a fish and pulling it up on the land and actually devouring the fish as they go. So those last three pictures I just wanted to show you quickly was a little sequence, how the bear is walking along the river, and it walked past the deck and then kept on going. Again, it gives us a little glance, but it keeps on continuing. It doesn't care about us. The thing is, we don't want to displace the bears. We want them to be comfortable. And we really let them choose the distance that they come towards us. We never approach bears, and we always just are sitting in one area and let the bears choose their distance. Now, on the decks of the kitchen and the decks of the porches of the sleep cabins, it's generally off limits for bears, and they know that. Through the years of the polar bear, that's my other trips, bear viewing, they're habituated not to touch the decks. They might come and they sniff and they go to it, but they definitely never touch. So here, these are just some pictures of us with the bear as they were coming through camp, and seeing some of the closeness to the bears. Now, because the bears are very predictable, there's certain elements of the camp that have unique features, and that is what's called a scratching tree. Now, off the deck here of the kitchen cabin, actually what happened, there's a little story I want to tell you here. We were watching bears of the day. This is now late, getting into the evening area, probably around 7 p.m. We had just gone inside for dinner, and just as we had done that, a bear came along the bank and went to what's called a rubbing tree. So rubbing tree is two reasons. They're obviously trying to rub, and it feels good. And two, the theory is that they're trying to leave their scent on it to let other bears know that they were there. And the same trees are used over and over again. And because of that, from a photographer's perspective, you get to know where to look for the bears and actually perhaps where to set up a GoPro camera. So what I did was, because we knew and we had seen bears rub on this tree a few times, I set up a GoPro camera just on the ground, perhaps about 5 feet away from the bear. Now, I was hoping to get a shot with all of us on the deck watching the bear, but instead we'd all gone in for dinner. Now, with the iPhone, there's an app with the GoPro that you can get using Wi-Fi that through your iPhone you can turn the GoPro on and off. So from inside the cabin, I turned the GoPro on to get this footage, and hopefully it works well for you guys. Streaming through the web here. So you can probably see our faces. We're inside the cabins here, and the bear came by, and it was rubbing and rubbing and rubbing. And this went on for a good 5 minutes. Now I'm just showing you a small snippet of it. Now, while he was doing that, we were inside, and I took this footage using the iPhone. So again, the bears are just rubbing along the side, and we're watching from the inside of the cabin. Although just 10 minutes earlier we've been on the deck, we would have been on the deck watching him, but we just happened to be inside for dinner when the bear came by. So he's really going to town and really enjoying it. So because the bears can be very predictable, it adds some very unique things. Now I'm going to show you another video in a second, which is actually the same tree, but because we knew the bears would come on here, what I did was I set up on this tree here, right where the arrow is, I don't know if you can see that, just above where the bear is, I set up another GoPro camera looking down onto the ground, and hoping to get a unique angle of the bears rubbing on the tree from the top down. instead I got something much more exciting, and that was getting a shot of two cubs coming up the tree. It's the same tree as you just saw in the background there. And you can kind of see in the background here the mother bear. She's just walking along the background where the two cubs had just climbed the tree. I thought for sure he was going to grab the GoPro, but luckily he left it there and then came down. There's a mother back with the two cubs, and then they walked away. So that was a really cool moment. And then with technology, with the Wi-Fi capability of the new GoPros, you can turn that GoPro on and off, so you don't need to be outside or there. And actually, what you can't see is that the deck is just to the right of us, and that's where we ended up seeing the bears while watching them from the deck. This is a video that I took from the outside of the dining cabin. The dining cabin is behind me, and as we had come out the door, there was a bear coming through camp, and this is quite normal. So here's a video of the bear coming through camp. So we don't hang around in the camp area, but when we do see one, if a bear was coming through camp, let's say we had been in our sleep cabins, that you see in the background, we would have just stayed on the deck very quietly and not moved or not called to anybody that there was a bear coming. What I just asked Phil was, hey, Phil, the bear's coming through camp, is that okay? And Phil is our lead guide, and he's been working with the bears for a long time, and part of the protocol here is that, yes, it's quite okay for bears to go through as long as she behaves. Now, what does that mean? If she were to go up on or come too close to the deck, you know, a quick little no would suffice for the bear to move off. So these are so speaking of the decks, I'm going to talk about that for a second, and just what some of the safety protocol was to use when you are in your sleep cabin and you need to go to the dining area. So we go from the sleep cabin, and sometimes there's bears coming through. Just like I said here, if you see one, you just stay on your deck and you just watch the bear. They're very calmly will go on by as they forage for berries, or they keep on continuing down the river. So I took a little video here with the GoPro again, just kind of explaining what the safety procedure was for us to move from the sleep cabins to the dining area. Okay, so here we have one cabin, and when you step out the door, generally what you do is you will listen for any bears, and then you will look on either side. You can see the trail. Just to look to the back, look around, we'll look to the other side. No bear. If you do see one, you generally just stay on your porch. Say no, not to come on the porch, they'll walk. The camp's left in much of a natural state. It's just some natural walking paths going through the buildings. When you see that the coast is all clear, you head straight for that brown door just over there. That's the dining hall. So you don't really wander around the camp. You actually will just head straight to the dining hall, which we're going to do now. Being vigilant for any bears. There's a couple other cabins over there. We head straight to the main door. Okay, so again, hopefully that gave a good representation of how we go from sleep cabins to the main cabins. As part of our day-to-day activities, we'll also be doing some hikes or sort of short walks from the cabins along the trails to the viewing platforms or other parts of the river where we can view them. I'll go to that in a second. But I want to show you here one more rubbing tree, and that's with a cabin in the background that's right in the middle of camp. And it's a very known tree that the bears love, and also also set up cameras on the tree looking down, just because it is such a predictable area that bears do go to. Another big guy coming through camp. So it's quite normal for us to do it. And again, it's, you know, where some people are maybe apprehensive at first, it becomes quite normal and very relaxed to see the bears come through. And enabled us. Now, I didn't take this picture, but this was taken with a larger zoom for a bear coming down the river of a big male coming through. This was just taken with a point-and-shoot camera. This is just a younger sub-adult that is standing on its hind legs, actually right in front of the dining area. And then we have here a series of cubs with a mother. So what's nice is that we do see many variety of bears in a very relaxed setting, and relaxed being for the bears and for us as well. I spent a lot of time. I mean, it's not like bears are coming by every hour or, sorry, every minute. So it could be that a bear walks, we spot it coming around the corner from the river. We are ready to go. Our cameras are on the tripods. We're very quiet. When we sit and wait. And when that happens, we don't move around too much. We just stay very calm, very quiet, just watch the bear slowly come up the river and do its thing. We don't call for the people to come and see the bear. If they happen to miss it, that's fine, because there's going to be another bear coming by a little bit later. And then as the bears come by, we have, you know, they'll fish, and maybe they'll pull a fish up onto the river, and then maybe they'll lie down, have a little look around. So this was of a bear. I mean, it's very typical of what they do. They walk down the river. They're looking for fish. They'll sometimes jump on a fish. They'll get it. Other times we'll see some males who are jostling for territory, and they may show their teeth at one another. But the bears are constantly moving up the river, down the river, displacing one another, and so the same bear will probably see in a week 4, 5, 6 times or more. Nice shot of Grizzly with the fish in its mouth after it's caught one. You know, you can see the distinct markings. This one we call copper, just because the very light color on the top, looking for fish. Now, these are all shots mostly taken from the dining area. And like I said, we also have the opportunity to go to the viewing platform. Now, the platforms are set into two distinct areas. And when we walk to the areas, we don't walk along the river. We walk more inland from the river, because the river is the bear's territory, and the inland area is also their territory. But we, the pathways that we walk, they expect us to be walking down that area, whereas they don't expect us to be walking up the river. I just threw in a couple of eagle shots here because the eagles are also quite prevalent in the area. They're flying back and forth, and they're nesting on the trees, and they're looking down for fish. So this is typical of the paths. They're just natural paths in the forest that we've made a little bit easier for walking with clearing some of the trees on the side there. But we walk always with a guide who takes us in. It's only maybe a few hundred meters, so it's not that far distance to walk to the next viewing area. And there's certain other areas that are off limits where we don't walk because we want the bears to have that space. So we stay to the trails, we get to the viewing platforms, and then from the viewing platforms we can either stay with the guide, or from there we just we can actually be left alone with a two-way radio or with and an air horn, and we can just sit there for as short as long as we'd like and just watch, because as we're there, we'll be seeing bears come by. There's one viewing platform that's been set up at a fishing or at a more of a pool area. And that pool area, they can be seen diving and looking and for the fish. And then the other platform is set up on a that looks further upriver, so that you have a much longer plane of view to see multiple bears sometimes walking along the river. So this one here is actually the pool You can see it's a deeper green color looking down over at the cliff that's on the side. Now the camp is just to the left of us, downriver. And then this was a shot that I took with from the viewing platform at a bear that was actually a little injured. It had it was favoring its right paw, and by favoring its right paw, we weren't sure would she survive. I mean, when you have a bear that couldn't put any weight on the right-hand side, you know, how did that happen? We weren't sure. Could it have been that she jumped on something and hurt herself? Could it have been with a sparring with another bear? The theories we were abounded, but we didn't know. But over the 4 days, it was quite amazing to see how she could fish and still catch fish, even with an injured paw. And after the 4 days, she was able to put weight and to keep on walking. So you really could see over the 4 days how they could heal themselves, and yet still how, what's the word I'm looking for, adaptable they are in terms of being able to survive. Now at the viewing platforms, the bears do know that we're there. They sometimes are curious and they will come and have a look, but then they'll keep on walking by. But then again, if anyone did ever feel like they were concerned, they could always radio the camp, and there's a guide could be there in 2 minutes or less. From the viewing platforms, it's the alone time that we give you to be able to spend the time with nature in the wilderness and just watch it at your pace, at your leisure. For photographers, it gives an opportunity to, you know, really have their space. And for those that are just nature enthusiasts, again, it's all about watching the birds, having this uninhabited, pristine wilderness to yourself. This is the second platform that's a little further upriver. I don't know if you remember the first helicopter shot that we came in where we saw the bear. You saw a white sandbar, and that's where this viewing platform looks out at. And what's nice about this is you get a long view of the river, and you can sometimes see 5, 6, 7 bears coming down the river at any given time. Similar to this one. I took this one with the 400 millimeter lens, looking up the same river as that one there. Again, here's a bear swimming along, and a bear that's up on the sandbar from the viewing platform. So I'm going to do one more final video in summary. Hopefully the sound will appear. You might have seen some of the footage already, and then we're going to get into and we're just unloading. We already saw one bear. We're going to see a few more, so we'll be right back. Okay, we're here at the Naskanah River in northern BC, and we're here on the walking the bears. So we're going to spend day after day watching the bears, watching how they change, really get to know the personality, and actually really get to know the behavior. So we really want to just showcase a bit more of the different bears behavior. So you can see this is the one that was favoring her paw a little bit. She's gone. Look at that. They're fishing. So this is another GoPro that I set up on a tree. There was some fish that was left from another bear. The mother with the 2 cubs came by to finish the fish off. Same bear on the rubbing tree. We already saw the other cubs. Some beautiful stuff. I gotta say, I really enjoyed the trip. It's one of my new favorites. It is a new trip for us this year, and it was the first trip that we ran to this location this year. Although Phil, our guide, has been running fishing trips here and are now doing the grizzly bear viewing trips from July until third week of August. What I love about this trip is that you're in pristine wilderness that no one can access. It is only accessible by helicopter. Very pleasurable temperatures. Like I said, they're 10 to 25 degrees Celsius. And the bear viewing is absolutely incredible. I have to say, from any trip that I've been on, you've got bears with regularity coming by of all kinds, and you get to spend, anywhere from 4 to 5 feet, if not 10 feet, away from the bears, but in safety and in a very relaxed environment that you feel completely safe, especially with the professional guides that are there at camp that know the bears for over 20 years. So from a layering, from a dress perspective, I mean, the temperature is summertime in the Arctic, subarctic, I guess. It's 10 to 25 degrees Celsius, although mornings can be cool, but we're often out in T-shirts. The morning, maybe had to put a little jacket on. We did have a waterproof shell just in case it rained. It did rain on one day. Some comfortable shoes, and that's about it. But it's a very easy trip to run. From a fitness perspective, you don't need to be overly fit. It's quite basic, actually, because there isn't a whole lot of walking that we do. You can choose to do as little or as much as you'd like, and then go from there. So if you do want to know more about this trip, the dates and rates are found on the Arctic Kingdom website, or you can always call me here at Arctic Kingdom. The number's on the screen. But at this point, what I'd like you to do is, if you do have any questions on your webinar chat window, there is a questions box that you can type your questions into. And what I'll do is, as you type your questions in, I will answer them accordingly. So the question is, how many people are on the trip? We have about, the maximum number of people that we have on this one is 8, and that is 7 people plus our Arctic Kingdom guide on that trip, and so it keeps it nice and personal and intimate. Is there clothing provided on this trip here? No, it's a very simple trip for us to what's the question? Everyone has the appropriate clothing for this trip, from t-shirts to long sleeve to a shell jacket. So we'll provide a clothing list that you can use for this trip. Are you allowed to touch or pet a bear or let the bear sniff you? Absolutely not. First of all, we let the bears come as close as they would like, however, up to a certain distance. I mean, there's when we're on the decks are our space, and beyond the deck is the bear space. So there's points where the bears may come within just below the deck level, and we're on top of the decks. But if they were to try to get up on the deck, our guides would give a sharp no, and the bears understand that, and then they actually back off quite quickly, and we'll keep going. That didn't actually happen while I was there. But that is the safety protocol as to what happens. Next question here. How many people are in a cabin? We have 2 people in a cabin. They are dual occupancy. So we have 4 sleep cabins for guests, and then there's other cabins for the staff to be in. There's the main lodge area for the dining and kitchen, and then there's a separate cabin for the utilities and showers area as well. So yes, there's showers. Prices are on the website. The question is, how difficult is it to get in and out of a helicopter? I mean, it's pretty much the same as getting out of a car. If you can get in and out of a car or in and out of a boat, you should be able to get in and out of the helicopter. If not, there's always help, step assistance to get in. What's the weight limit for the helicopter flight? We provide a 70-pound weight limit for people, and that's typically sufficient for the amount of camera gear that people would like to bring, since the clothing requirements are actually quite light. Recharging batteries, there is a generator that is on site, and it can be put on. We generally put it on in the afternoons. It doesn't affect the bears at all, and but yeah, if any time you need the batteries charged, they can put it on. The bathrooms for these cabins are actually an outhouse, but very, very comfortable, very, very clean, non-odorless. It's they're brand new deep pits. They're fantastic, actually. And there are a few more questions, but just in the interest of time, what I'm going to do is I'll email individuals the answers to your specific questions. If you have any other questions, feel free to send me an email, thomas@arctickingdom.com, or at the 1-800 number that's up on your screen. But ultimately, I had a wonderful trip. I hope you really enjoyed the webinar, and that we'll see you on this trip with some, and you'll be sharing your photographs with me at some point in the future. Thanks very much.